Hết nước. Hết nước. Alo, alo. Alo. Alo, alo. Test mic. Alo. Ok. Chắc là được rồi đấy. Ok. Alo, alo. Test mic. Alo. Nhiều cái mic này đã. Hello anh. Let's học hành thôi. Để này đây này. Tung, 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 tung. Answer là tài liệu. Shop. Cái này xem rồi. Type of post-production and common mistake in post-production. Cái nhạc nhẽo đâu nhỉ? Đây rồi. Ok, học thôi.
Now, before even starting with post-production, we need to know what type of post-production we have to achieve. And that depends mainly on the purpose of an image. Let me explain. There's mainly three purposes for an image in the archivist field. The first is the most obvious one. We need to sell the building. We need to sell the apartment. And if you are spending millions of dollars for an apartment, you probably want to know everything about it, and everything, every detail, every material, every furniture, everything about it. And there's no room for misunderstanding. There's no space for doubts. You need to portray everything as it should be and as it will be, because if I'm paying a lot of money on something which is not there yet, I want to have proof about what I'm going to own in the future. So the post-production for these kind of images has to be very, very precise, and it's more like color grading than paint work. Okay, there's no room for brushes, there's no room for artistic signs or something like that. Everything should be as as it will be in the future. And to do so, we normally work with with a photographic approach. We tend to look at real things, real buildings, maybe buildings that are in the same area, and we try to copy. I mean, the contrast, the color, the light color, the amount of fog, haze, if there is any, and so on. So the first type of post production is based on you need to sell the building, you need to sell the apartment, and everything should look as it will as it will be in the real world once it's built. The second type of post production depends on the purpose that you need to help an architecture firm to win a competition. And in this example, we can see Mir or Luxigon. They are, as we saw in the previous video, kings about this. And of course, the type of building and the way you want to portray the building
Betray là cái gì
differs
ta?
from one artist
Đéo
to
biết.
the other. I mean, you can have Mir, which is, more kind of natural, and they are very keen to create possible scenarios for the building itself. And then you have Luxigon, which is a little bit more kind of dramatic and bold. And there is this kind of, when I see Luxigon images, there's this kind of feeling I have that they want to be bold and be recognized, and they dare to to bet is like something like okay, we are this, and we want you to notice that. We want you to understand this image is from Luxigon, even if there's no Luxigon logo on it. And I feel like that the strength then is basically within the image. And if the architecture firm decide to trust them and to ask them for an image, this power, this intrinsic power which is inside the image, is kind of a strength point then in the competition. And even if they have very crazy outcome sometimes, like in this case, I remember they show an image about this center here, which is something about a music center or so. Even if the image looks kind of crazy, the real place is actually, which is built, is actually very close to the image itself. So this is great, because that means your post-production kind of portray what this will be allowed to do if you want.
Đại khái là ông này đang nói là có hai kiểu, một là diễn họa cho các công trình sẽ được xây và theo thiên hướng tả thực, hai là diễn họa cho competition. Thì competition là Mir với cả Lucigon đang làm. Mir thì nó đã làm theo kiểu gần gũi, xanh tốt rồi các thứ, nhưng mà Lucigon thì nó làm theo kiểu chơi rất là concept rồi đập màu mạc miếng các thứ.
To impress someone in a very short amount of time.
Cái này thì ta biết rồi.
But
Nói
at
ít thôi.
least you have a punch, okay, a strong punch, and
Nó bảo là như nhìn cái bức ảnh như kiểu bị đấm vào mặt đấy.
You can kind of be on top of others when you have to win a competition. Okay, I don't think a competition has to be won over an image. because it's the project that is the most important thing. You know, if you have a good cake, then you have the cherry on the top, I would say, with the good image. And of course, you can do some extreme choices, and you can have a more kind of artistic look, I would say, more painty, than when you want to sell something to real estates. And for example, here we have D-Box,
D-Box.
and the style of the post production is kind of always the same. We have this sharp edges, this kind of very sharp images that it's like you want to feel the shaders, you want to feel the materials like you are there. And there's like this kind of glow, like almost everywhere. And if you check, there's like a lot of white. The balance of the image is towards the white tones, and there's really um, little space for dark areas. And I believe this is part of the message. This is part of the way they want you to feel when you look at those images. Everything has to look like expensive and pure, and I would say untouched. And this is a way to underline the probably amount of money you need, use of DOF, because you need to see everything. And this is part of the the trick. And they use a lot, for example, photos of people. Of course, they have the tools and the budget to have customized actors, and this is a way to improve the, I would say, power of the image without showing a lot about the architecture itself, and it's really working. I mean, it's luxurious, and the matching is, of course, well done. And they can do that because they can actually shoot real people. And it's not just about going online and find some pre-made shots, which is kind of what we normally do because we don't have the budget. And this is one way. Another post-production type, another way of doing these kind of post-production, because you need to be as realistic as you can, is like Bertrand does, Bertrand Benoit.
Bên nào đây?
And
Real but not real.
I mean, he doesn't have to sell its images to anyone, but what he's trying to do is he has in one end some pictures, some real pictures, you see, some references, and he loved to go and try to get the same result with renders. So even if you may think, oh, Bertrand Benoit, he doesn't know post-production, actually he does post-production, and he's just very good at it. And of course, as you can see here, he loves to put imperfections from the camera
Imperfection from camera.
within the render, because if the render is too perfect, then it feels like fake.
Cái thằng này thì nó hay cho những cái imperfection, tức là sự không hoàn hảo vào trong cái bức ảnh. Này, ông ấy đang chỉ về mấy cái lỗi chromatic aberration. Cái
And
này thì mình biết
so
rồi.
if you have, I don't know, chromatic aberration, blooms effects, and everything is basically, I mean, over brighted, and not over brighted, but there's more bright tones than bright values than dark values. You feel like this. The image becomes of the same type of image that comes from photographers when they take their own photos and they do their own post production. And this is one way. This is one way. Of course, this type of post production is made for could be used to sell the actual thing. And then there is another
Robert
type of post production, another reason to do post production, which is privets, which is designing things, which is to help other people to design things, and which is something I love to do, but I don't do it personally for other clients. I do it for myself. I love to create illustrations, and this is one I've done for the Academy Day number 6. And as you can see from this slides, I really love to complete the 3D phase, the 3D part of my work as soon as possible. Okay, this is the final render I've done, and it took me a couple of hours maybe.
couple of hour, uầy, tức là vài giờ.
Phase, the 3D part of my work as soon as possible. Okay, this is the final render I've done.
Ok.
And
Rồi nó vẽ thêm mấy
took
mây
me
trời.
a couple of hours maybe. And what I'm doing over it is, just a lot of post production, and this is a mix of photo bashing, which means that you can place photos on top of the render. You can do painting. You can photos of water and
Biết ngay.
sketch over them,
Nó xốp cái nước à? Nó xốp thêm cái nước. Mây trời cái thứ.
as you can see from this example here, I start to use photos of water, and then
Uầy,
I add some vegetation, some photos of, I don't know, clouds, waterfalls, and I created some foam with brushes, with custom brushes, and this is the final image, which is very different from the 3D render, and it's a it gets more details, and but it's my way of doing post production is probably too contrasted and too colorful,
too contrast and too colorful.
saturated for photorealism, and this is one way of doing post production. And even here we can see in our art station, I've been looking for some examples. This is one from Thomas Ozang Muir, which is an artist that did some concept for
Love,
Love,
Death
Death
and
and
Robot.
Robots from Netflix. And as you can see, I mean, you can start from a 3D shape, a 3D render, and then you can, painting over it. You can, do some photo bashing just to have a concept. And this is another way of doing archivets. You can help, somebody else to design a building or a space, just sketching. I mean, this is another example from one of my favorite artists, Jan Herschel.
Jan Georgios.
And this is, a mix between a 3D environment, a 3D render, and some photo bashing, some kind of, I don't know, when you place photos on top of a 3D render and you start to deform them, put them in perspective, and then painting over them in a very sketchy and quick way, just to have a concept, just to have an idea of what is going to be the future. And this is another way of doing post-production, okay? And of course is very quick, but also very useful if you don't know where to go, if the architect doesn't know. Okay, so there's out there, probably there's a lot of artists just helping other designers with privets, and it's job too. So, and you don't have to be that perfect. It's it's about creativity. It's about being able to paint very quickly and give an idea with just a couple of strokes from the brush. So, I mean, now, long story short, before you even start doing some post production, you need to know what type of post production you need to achieve, and to understand what type of post production you need to work with. You need to know the purpose of an image. Okay, and when you know the purpose, you can talk with the client and say, okay, why do you need this image? What you need to do with this image? You need to win a competition. You need to sell the building. You need to, I don't know, design something a little bit better. Once you have the purpose, then you can choose your path and, make something different.
Ôi rồi, một video nó nói về, nó sẽ bị lệch này nhỉ. Nó nói về rất nhiều kiểu post production, chứ post production không nhất thiết phải là hậu kỳ nội, hậu kỳ ngoại, mà nó là hậu kỳ bán căn hộ, bán công trình, quick design, rồi concept, rồi đủ mọi thứ. Mấy này thì ta biết rồi. Xem này, tiếp.
Let's see together some common mistakes in
Bật cái mirror lên để nốt. Đau đầu đấy nhỉ.
post production.
Common mistake in post production.
Number one, destroy informations.
Bye.
Now, for example, in this case, we have a post-production file that has the base has 32-bit
What the fuck?
automations. Now, for example, in this case, we have a post-production file that has the base has 32-bit
Fine.
render, which is inside smart object. Now, even if we have this 32-bit render inside the smart object, the file we are working with is a 16-bit file. And this will allow us to do a proper post-production, because mainly every single option here is available about filters, about adjustments, and so on. But still, we have a 32-bit file into a smart object. Why that? Because if we then double click in there, we can open the 32-bit file, and we can still define, you can still work on the exposure, for example, if we feel that some areas are overexposed or underexposed. And so a main mistake, a very common mistake, could be that we take the so-called smart object and then we rasterize it, because maybe we want to spend less memory space on the hard drive, or maybe because we are happy with the result and that's it. Now, this is a mistake, because you cannot go back on 32-bit then, and if there's an error about exposure, you cannot fix it anymore. And as you should know, so point number 2, common mistake, trying to fix exposure on a 16-bit file or an 8-bit file.
Cái này khá là hay nhá. Cái này thật ra là
or an 8-bit file. You cannot do that. The only way 10-bit file.
Cái cách mà nó click vào cái layer thông minh á, xong nhảy sang một cái cửa sổ 32 bit ấy, là cái trick mà chỉ có ai xem cái phần đầu của video, cái phần 1 này thì mới biết thôi. Nó nói về tại sao 16 bit với cả 32 bit nó hoạt động. Sau đến phần này thì nó nói về cái cách nó fix. Ví dụ như kiểu nó quăng cái ảnh RAW vào thì nếu nó lưu 32 bit thì cái ảnh RAW đấy, mặc dù file là 16 bit á, nhưng mà riêng cái ảnh RAW đấy nó để layer thông minh và nó click vào layer thông minh để Đây nhỉ. Đây này. Nó click vào layer thông minh để nó hiệu chỉnh những cái mà nó cần tăng giảm sáng tối, exposure với cả gamma. Chỉ gamma với cả exposure thôi nhé. Bởi vì khi mà làm bức ảnh 32 bit ấy, thì khi mà hiệu chỉnh exposure với gamma thì nó sẽ lấy được rất là nhiều thông tin. Sau đấy thì nó mới comeback lại cái file 16 bit để
That's
nó
it.
hoạt động.
Now,
Đó. Tức là nó, đây là kiểu workflow của nó.
this is a mistake because you cannot go back on 32-bit.
Cái này thằng Tùng team em trước cũng làm hay bị. Trên file 16 bit nó đẩy một đống exposure với cả gamma các thứ, toàn mấy cái hiệu chỉnh đấy thôi. Thật ra nó rất là nguy hiểm để nó sinh ra những cái pixel bị lủng.
Then,
Nói là
and if there's an error about exposure, you cannot fix it anymore. And you know, as you should know, so point number 2, the only way to fix exposure and gamma is on a 32-bit. So the right thing to do is to keep the smart object, and if you want to change the exposure, you need to go inside it and bring with you some masks, some selections, and then use the exposure adjustment here to do whatever you want to do, or the gamma is the same. Then when you get the result you want, you click on the X, you press yes, and then it will update the main PSB file, which is 16-bit. So point number 3.
cái này thì thật ra em thấy là nếu mà mình đã render đã đủ sáng đủ tối rồi ấy, thì thật ra mình cứ dùng 16 bit thôi, không đến mức cần phải chỉnh exposure và cả gamma trong cái 32 bit đâu. Đâm ra là bảo cái này là hay không thì vẫn hay, nhưng mà dùng hay không thì chắc là mình cũng thực sự không cần.
3. Try to avoid contrast. You should keep contrast for the end of the post-production.
Nó nói gì đấy?
So point number 3.
To contrast the image too much.
Try to avoid contrast. You should keep contrast for the end of the post-production. And the reason is that if you add some contrast too soon, for example with some curves, you can drag down some black values and drag up some bright values, then you get some contrast. But see, look at what happens in the histogram. There's some holes now, and you can check also if you had another curve in the histogram here below the line, and these are missing informations. These are gone. You're not gonna get them anymore, basically, which means that instead of a nice gradient, now you have a gradient with less colors. And if you keep doing it, if you keep contrasting over and over and over, you will lose more and more informations, and the image will be technically crunchy. That's the
Crunchy.
term.
Nó đang bảo là dùng hậu kỳ thì đừng có dùng contrast sớm, cứ để lên dần cái đoạn gọi là adjustment và final ấy, thì mình mới chỉnh contrast. Còn không thì nên hạn chế thôi, chứ cũng không đến mức gọi là không được dùng.
And it's not very good. It's not good at all. So long story short, you should contrast at the end of the post-production in the finalization. And if you can do that, if you accomplish this, you will get many informations, and your image will look a lot better. And by the way, remember that when you use a curved contrast, you always need to change the blending mode from normal to luminosity. Otherwise, the curves will also saturate, will also change the strength of the colors of your image.
Cái này hôm nọ anh nói với Sơn rồi đấy, là nó chỉnh curve hay là những công cụ tăng contrast á, nó sẽ chỉ để luminosity thôi, nó không để cái normal đâu. Bởi vì khi mà mình tăng contrast, mình tăng giảm contrast á, thì nó cũng saturate cả cái bài lên. Đâm ra khi mà mình để cái chế độ luminosity này thì nó không ảnh hưởng đến màu, nó chỉ tăng lên cái value của cái điểm sáng thôi.
Point number 4, sharpness. Now,
to overrule sharpness everywhere, no matter what.
You should have some depth of field, some blurriness in the image coming from the render itself by default, because this is how the camera works. But anyway, try to avoid to increase the sharpness of the image too much. So if you go like to filter sharpen, smart sharpen,
Smart
you can
sharpen.
see that you can easily get a more sharp look on the image. And sometimes we are kind of, pushed to do that. Try to avoid this kind of stuff completely, because it basically goes against everything that looks photographic. And a little bit of sharpness may sometimes work on some areas, but to do it on the whole image and to do it with too much strength actually is not the right way. And a way to accomplish nice sharpness could be to create a new duplicate of the final layer with Ctrl Shift Alt E, and then you need to go on filter, other, high pass, and then with the high pass you go with a very 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 small radius, something like, I don't know, 1 pixel.
Một.
Okay.
Okay.
Then you press OK and you put this
Vivid
layer
light.
in overlay, and this will
Overlay.
basically generate nice sharpness, but at least this one can, you can lower the opacity of it, you can mask it and keep it only where you really need it. For example, I don't know, I invert the mask so this sharpness effect is going away, and then I use a brush to paint it, or only with where I want it, maybe where I need to look at, and where I have the only area perfectly sharp of the image. Point number 5.
Nó đang bảo là cái high pass đấy trước mình tưởng là dùng cái vivid light, hóa ra là nó dùng overlay. Cái đấy thì chắc là ai cũng biết rồi. To overrule saturation everywhere no matter what.
Keep an eye on the strength.
Mẹ, nốt vào. Ngu thật. Từ từ, đợi tí em nốt nha. Một. Từ từ, đây là phút thứ 6 rưỡi. Một là cái gì? Destroy information. By rasterize. Cái này thì đại khái là dùng exposure và gamma cho ảnh 16 bit cực kỳ hạn chế, coi như không dùng. Hai là cái gì đó. Đấy, cái này thì cũng biết rồi. Đấy, đại khái là chung một ý một luôn. Cái thứ hai là còn cái thứ ba mà. Đây là 2 này. Đây là 3. Contrast image too soon. Không đẩy contrast sớm, hạn chế. Nó sẽ sinh ra các pixel mất thông tin, khiến giải gradient đục. Cái thứ ba là cái sharpen. Dùng sharpen nhiều quá. Sharpen everywhere. Everywhere. 4 là saturation. Everywhere. Huy Phạm à? Who are you? Không biết là mình có biết bạn không? Huy Phạm là ai nhỉ? Mình không biết đâu nhé. Ok, tiếp tục.
And, a little bit of sharpness may sometimes work on some areas, but of use of
xem đến đoạn này.
Keep an eye on the strength of your colors. I mean, saturation of your color. because even if in real life we can see them through a camera, we don't have the same ability. We don't have the same spectrum of color strength. So sometimes that's the reason why if you desaturate a little bit the final result, it will look a lot better. Now, I'm not telling you this is a rule and you should do this every time, but at least check the strength of the colors in your image. And one thing you can do is to keep your saturation higher on the, focus of the image and keep the saturation lower everywhere else. A quick trick to understand the strength of your color, to understand the saturation, is to add on top of your image a new layer and fill it with medium gray color, and then put this layer into luminosity blending mode. And so you will keep the color and the hue of the layer behind this and the luminosity of this gray layer, and then on top of this you have another layer and you need to fill it with a red color. I mean, this is not important. Could be red, could be green, could be anything, any color you want. I pick red because it's a lot more visible, and so I click on it and then I change the blending mode to hue, and basically this will change every color into red color. And as you
tức là tức là đây là cái cách nó check saturation. Một kênh đổ gray xong đổ cái từ từ vào test luôn. Trước lại sao quen, lâu lâu em vào xem bài anh vẫn thấy. Chắc là bạn xem cái video dạy Photoshop của mình, chắc thế ha. Có cái work nào 98 93 đều có cái gì hết. 40 check luôn. Cái ảnh như cái hạch ấy. Cái này nó sẽ đổ một cái solid color. Không phải, nó đổ cái gì ta? Pattern. Nếu phải, đại khái nó đổ một cái màu gray 50-50. Nó để cái luminosity này, xong nó đổ một cái màu đỏ nữa, rồi nó để là color. Cái gì? Để cái gì? Quên rồi. Huê à? Để huê à? Đây là cách check của nó. Cái điểm nào hiện lên quá thì chắc là đang bị saturation.
can see, now you can get a glimpse of where the saturation is stronger, because you will see more red than the others. Now, point number 6.
Mình nốt lại cái đó nha. Dùng saturation everywhere. Dùng 50 gray. 50 gray. Để kênh luminosity đúng không nhỉ? Yeah. Để kênh luminosity. Để check saturation. Chúc bạn Duy Phạm xem cân vui vẻ nha. Mình đang học tí. To choose the wrong format and choose an image.
Remember the format video. You need to remember how to save your images. The one for the clients should be an 8-bit JPEG, or if you don't want any lossless, a format file, you can save a PNG. If you are working with CMYK colors, then you should save a TIFF file. And when you start working, you can avoid the PSD, and you can easily save just a PSB, which is the second format.
Che gì đấy? PSB.
We don't have the 2 gig limitation. on that you have on the PSD. Remember, it doesn't matter what you do, always save the IC
ICC
profile.
profile.
So whoever opens your image, it will see the same result that you have. Last one for today, point number 7, people.
Cái thứ 6 là save file PSB, nhớ tích ICC color profile. Barely much people on top of the render.
Now, I've seen lots of renders ruined by the wrong person or the wrong match in terms of people. And we are going to have an entire webinar on matching people. Okay, so I'm not going to talk a lot about this now, but please guys, remember one thing. It's better to spend a couple of hours looking for the right guy, than, trying to spend 2 hours matching the wrong one. Okay, so I mean, you can take your own pictures, you can go outside and get your own assets, you can download things from the internet, but problem will be about perspective, you will see. Anyway, try to not ruin your renders with the wrong person or with the wrong perspective, the wrong lighting, and try to be as as picky as you can when you choose the persons. And also I would try to avoid to have so many different people when you start. Just one good element, just one good person, just one good match, it's enough most of the time, even to tell a story, even to have a balance point maybe, or a focus point, or like in this case, an image from Dario from one of our master classes. This guy is the balance point,
Balance points.
Together with him we are following this strong lines, and we are looking at people training on the field. So it took time, it takes time to find the right elements here, but at the end it worked out pretty well, and I'm pretty happy about the results. So Dario did a very good job, but it took time, probably 3-4 hours to find the right elements, the right people, the right photos.
Nó bảo là cái lỗi ghép người sai này thì chắc ai cũng biết rồi, nhưng mà nó bảo là tìm mấy cái đứa người này mất từ 3 đến 4 giờ để tìm được một đứa người hợp vào cái bức ảnh. Vãi chưởng luôn. Công ty mình thì ghép người chắc vài phút, mà ghép chỉ để cho có, chưa có cái ý đồ gì hết. Ít bức ảnh có ý đồ.
So this is everything for this video. Next one.
Ok. Đại khái là tổng kết ra được thì có 6 cái lỗi thôi. 6 lỗi ghép người. Một là dùng exposure và gamma cho ảnh 16 bit. Hai là không nên đẩy contrast sớm, hạn chế nó sẽ sinh ra các pixel mất thông tin, khiến giải gradient đục. 3 là sharpen nhiều. 4 là saturation cũng nhiều. 5 là save file PSB, nhớ tích ICC color profile. Và 6 là đừng có ghép người khi mà cùi bắp. Ok, chúng ta sẽ xem. Đấy, xong phần 2 rồi. Hình như mình nhớ không nhầm thì phần 3 nó bắt đầu có bài tập. Đúng không nhỉ? 3.2 này. Đúng. Nó cho cả file bài tập thế này. Tha hồ mà làm. Qua phần 3. Nhiều phết đấy. What we need from the render engine. Xem luôn.
So let's see together what we need from the render engine in order to achieve a good post-production. Now, it doesn't matter if you're working with 3ds Max or Cinema 4D, if you're rendering with V-Ray or Corona. There's a few things you need anyway in order to, keep working with Photoshop. First of all, what you need is the base render. what you normally call the beauty pass, and it's what you get into the frame buffer at the end of your work. So that image have to be saved in a 32-bit XR file. Now,
32-bit Excel file. Nó đang bảo là nhớ lưu ảnh XR32 bit.
recently what you can do is inside the same XR file you can also store all the passes and all the masks we will need to work with Photoshop, and that's a great thing. You will find more infos about this below this video. Now, the render, when you open it in Photoshop, you can get a transparent background, or you can get a matte color, or even if you did the wrong thing, you can get a photo, an image of the HDRI you have used inside the software, the rendering software. Now that would be a problem, because if you still have the sky as a background, all the pixels in between the house and the background will be basically like blue, because maybe the sky is blue, or white because maybe you have a cloud. And that could be a huge problem if you are trying to remove the background from the base pass, from the beauty pass, from the base render. So what to do? What we normally do is this. We take the HDRI we are using in the render, or maybe the sun and sky we are using into the render, and we are overriding them
With black.
the visibility of them with a black color. So in the end, what you get from the base pass, from the frame buffer, is an image with a completely black sky, but the image itself is not changing, because the HDRI or the sun and sky, they are anyway lighting the scene, and you just don't see them directly. Okay, that is a great way to automatically delete every black pixel from the image, and you will get a nice matching with the render and the new background you are going to put in Photoshop. So first of all, the background is something that comes from Photoshop. For us, we are not using the same background you're getting from the render. Okay. And the reason is, you can do more. If you have the render separated from the background, you can put stuff in the middle. Like, I don't know, you have this building, we have some sky in the bottom, and then in between we can have, I don't know, some trees or some bushes or wherever. Sometimes you don't have the transparent backgrounds, so you may want to get the alpha from the frame buffer, and so you can use the alpha as a mask. So you can take this into the 32-bit and put it into the channels, select the channel with the control click on the thumbnail, and then you can mask the render itself. But this is not happening, because most of the time Photoshop is going to ask you to automatically remove the background because he found an alpha. Another thing you need from the render engine is the passes, and here you can see a few of them. Now the ZDAP, the first one, is the
cái phần này hay này, có thể nó sẽ nói hết tất cả các kênh nó đang dùng để làm gì cho mình. Ông này vẫn dùng Gray.
one of the most important, because you can do a lot of stuff with this one. You can create fog, you can define depth of field, you can mask a portion of the render if you need. So anyway, the ZDAP is the only pass that you need to define in 3ds Max, and you need to define a ZDAP min and a ZDAP max. Why that? Because this pass is based on the distance between you, the camera, and all the object in the scene. So you need the ZDAP min value, which is basically 0, is always 0, and because it's the starting point, and a ZDAP max, which is the distance between you and the furthest object in the scene. You can just go on top view when you are in 3ds Max. You get the tape actor, and you measure the distance between you and, I don't know, something in the background, like a tree or the end of the building, and so you get something like this. So if your ZDAP doesn't look like, you know, something like that, you probably have a mistake. You probably did a mistake. You forgot to insert the ZDEP max value, and you need to re-render. The good news is the ZDEP doesn't really care about lights, about, you know, reflection, about bump, only about displacement. But anyway, you can turn off every light in the scene. You can turn off every glass in the scene, and you can render again in a couple of minutes, no matter what. So don't worry if you forget the ZDEP. You can always get it back in a very small amount of time. Another pass which I use sometimes is the specular pass. Now, this is, the name of these passes will change depending on the render engine. You will find more info below this video. The specular will help me sometimes to define specular, so the reflection of a light source, a little bit better on the scene. Maybe I don't want, maybe I want to, you know, underline some areas, or maybe, you know, I have a spotlight on an area that I want to, you know, see more, and then this kind of pass is very useful. Maybe in screen or color dot.
Screen and color dot.
Another pass which is my favorite
Favorite raw line là cái gì?
is the row light pass. Now, it's called differently in different ways in V-Ray and Corona. In V-Ray is the row total lighting, and
V-Ray total lighting.
in Corona is the row component diffuse.
Row component, từ từ mình cũng bật cái mắt lên để xem. Row component nè, chưa xem. Nó bảo là kênh này hay lắm.
And basically what you see is a pass with all the geometries of the scene without textures, just the lighting, okay, on a pretty white kind of material. And this helps a lot when you have, for example, vegetation, because you can put this pass on top of vegetation.
Pass on the vegetation. Nó bảo là khi nó có rau củ gì đấy.
And you know, because vegetation is translucent, and you know, light tends to kind of dissolve little by little when it passes through the leaves. With this pass, you can restore a good amount of shadows on vegetation. But you know, it's also useful, for example, if you want to simulate snow, because you know it's white, but there's anyway some, you know, shadows. So it's really, really cool. This one is a must-have. Okay.
Must have à? Chết dở. Mình làm mấy năm rồi chưa biết cái kênh này luôn. Từ từ. Để vào, nó bảo là cái kênh này dùng để com cây vegetation. Vào ngay 3D Max tìm xem nó là cái gì. Người đợi xíu nhé. Đơ quá này. Shibai. Raw line nó bảo lúc nãy nó bảo là nó là kênh gì trong Corona nhỉ?
And in Corona is the row component diffuse.
Row component. Row component. Row component. Row component. Đây à? À đây. Row component đây rồi. Mặc dù chưa thấy nó ứng dụng gì, nhưng mà lần sau mình sẽ thử kênh này xem thế nào.
Pass. And basically you can restore, you know, show components, because the row light component is basically the sky light plus the sunlight. You may also want to render the passes of just the row light from the sun, which I don't have here, but I have the row global illumination. So this is the light from the sky. And I don't know, sometimes you want to put the row global light.
Row global thì nó là cái gì?
Light plus the row sunlight, one on top of the other, and go down with the opacity, find the right blending mode, which is probably screen. Or add. And so you can decide how strong has this sun should be, or I don't know, maybe you want to turn an image from sunlight image to cloudy image, and you can do that. Another one is the raw refraction, and basically this is a pass that will allow you to cut through glasses and water, and you can get what it's behind it. Okay, so in case you work like us, in I mean, we can we can choose a couple of things. We can have glasses in the scene, and so in the raw refraction you will see glasses, the interior, behind the glasses inside here. But in this case, as you can see, there's no glasses. We are going to render them into, to apart, in a different render. And the only refraction information we have is in the swimming pool, because we have some water. And so what you see is the
Water.
the ground of the swimming pool. Now, if you have raw refraction and then on top of it you put the raw reflection, you can basically remake. You can do a shader from scratch again, because you can define the amount of reflection. You can decide the amount of you have the raw refraction, which is basically showing the inside, the inner part, and so on. So anyway, the raw reflection will show you every shader, every material at the full potential of the reflection. And so it's up to you then to go down with the opacity when you are going to use this pass, because sometimes it's too strong. Everything looks metallic here, and it doesn't matter if you are
Everything look metallic. Nhìn trông kim
looking
loại
at
quá.
the object frontally or on the side. The strength of the reflection here is always 100%. So dielectrics have a very weak reflection on front. So if you're going to use this as it is, it's probably too much. And then we have the normals. Now, these are the V-Ray normals. In Corona, they have another name. You will find it below this video. These are very useful for many reasons. You can relight a part of the image or the whole image with this. You can select all the object looking to a certain direction.
Cái này ở Corona nó là normal geometry hay là normal shading ấy. Sơn hôm nọ Sơn có làm cái view biển lấy lại cái ánh sáng của cái ô bằng kênh này khá hay. Anh thì toàn dùng kênh này để kéo shadow highlight,
Maybe
chưa lấy để dùng để lấy lại ánh sáng bao giờ.
you have
Nhưng mà nó vừa mới nói là kênh này dùng để đôi khi lấy lại ánh sáng đấy, rất hay.
an overcast image, but you want some sun to paint some sun, and so you can basically mask, for example, all the green areas, and you can manually paint some light here, and it will basically act as a mask to paint the sun. I mean, the normals are very useful, and let's say that if you have a very complex geometry, very detailed 3D geometry, they will look even better. Okay, so don't expect great things from a normal pass if your geometry is very simple, but at least it's something, and you can use it anyway. Sometimes I will show you an example about relighting an image with normal maps, and it will blow your minds, because this is very, very powerful. And then for last we have
Và là cái kênh này tẹo nữa ta sẽ sâu cho cái kênh này cực kỳ quyền lực.
diffuse pass, which is just a pass
Diffuse.
with all the textures of the image. And as you can see here, we have some concrete, here we have some wood, tiles, and so on. And this is very helpful, because this diffuse pass plus the raw total lighting pass and reflections or refraction will basically let you build scratch material, a new material from scratch. So it doesn't matter if you have some mistakes, if you have some errors somewhere, you don't have to go back to the render engine to make a new shader and re-render and reopen the Photoshop file. So it could take a lot of time, but because of these passes, you can do that directly in Photoshop. Okay. After the passes, of course, we need masks, and there's many scripts, many tools to make masks, and you basically need a mask for each material. And you can have also different types of masks. About maybe you have, I don't know, maybe you have a mask for a chair, and then the chair is split in more than one material. You can have a mask of the whole chair, and then you can have another mask, just for the legs and for the seat. So this is up to you. We're going to see a lot more in this course about how to make masks. You will find informations down below, and it's about nowadays is about the render engine itself. Some of them already gives you the ability to render this kind of masks. There's other type of masks like cryptomat masks. Anyway, what you need, what you want to have, is the ability to select an area of the render. If you don't, if you are not able to select something, then everything is worthless. And so please, guys, spend some times making masks, making selections, because this is the core of everything. If you don't have any mask, if you have a mask, you cannot work.
Anh Đức, anh nghe thấy chưa? Nó bảo là hãy mask đi, dành một tí thời gian để mask đi.
Okay, and I remember that you have the trick to put all the layers except one in blend mode add, so you can see which masks are you missing. Okay, after mask, all you need more than that is photos. Okay, and this is not coming there. These photos are not coming from your render engine. These photos can be found on internet. There's a few websites. I will write down where to look for, and you can do anyway. The best thing you can do actually is to go out, take your camera, and make your own photos, because for a couple of reasons. First reason, there's no copyright issues. Okay, so this is a photo I've done. I can use it as much as I want. Okay, the second thing that it's even better than that is that if you shot a photo in RAW format, then that photo is a 16-bit image. It's not an 8-bit image, a crappy image that you can find on Google. And a 16-bit image is a lot better. Okay, it's 100 times better than an 8-bit image, because you have more information, and you can play with it more without ruining it. Okay. And for example, here we have a photo of some grass for the foreground. We have a photo of some grass for the background, and then we have a bush, and then we have some images of like bokeh effect if we want to do something crazy. Anyway, it's just an example. We're going to see some many more photos during the class. But please remember, it's always better if you go and take your own pictures. And don't worry about being so picky about pictures. Just take a bunch of them every time you go out. You don't know when you're going to use them. Okay, I have a repository of photos I've done like eight years ago, and last month I've done a project and I used a photo I've done in 2012. So you never know. You never know when you're going to use it. But thanks God we have them, and so we can reuse them. So that's the trick. That's the thing. The bigger your asset folder is, the more tools you can have ready to be placed in the Photoshop file. So remember, another reason why you should take your own picture is the perspective. Sometimes maybe you find the right type of picture, maybe you find the right lighting, but the perspective is wrong. And if you can take your own pictures, then you can choose your own perspective, and you can just simply copy from information from the B-ray camera, from the Corona camera, wherever it is. And so you can just go outside there with the knowledge of where to place the camera, how high should be the camera from the ground, what time of the day should be, what type of lighting, where is the element you have to shot, because it's different if you are taking a photo of ground and then the ground is like down there or up here. It change everything. It changes the perspective. So you need to know how to place the camera, the real camera, to get in one click what you may want to. I mean, sometimes you spend so many hours looking for the right pictures on internet, and maybe you can take it from yourself in 5 minutes. Just stand up, take your camera, and go outside. So these are the basic stuff we need to start working on a post-production.
Ok, đoạn cuối nó bảo là nếu mày có một cái camera thì thỉnh thoảng đi ra ngoài cầm lấy mà chụp, bởi vì mày sẽ không bao giờ biết là khi nào mày sẽ dùng lại cái bức ảnh đấy đâu. Nó lấy dẫn chứng là trước nó làm một cái dự án xong có những cái bức ảnh chụp từ 2018 ấy, nó dùng lại. Thế là cảm ơn vì nó đã đi chụp. Passes mass and saving XCR files. Cái này chắc là đơn giản.
Before to render your final image,
chết quên. Cái này nó không có này. Cái này tự nhiên có một cái chữ exercise nhé. Đó, exercise này chắc là có bài 3.1.2 3.1 3.1.2 làm điếu có 3.1.2. Thôi, từ từ cứ xem đã.
before to render your final image, you need to set up some render elements that can be useful for the post-production, and also some masks that can help you to select and isolate objects during the post-production phase. So first thing, you need to open the render setup and start to add the most used render elements. For example, you can add the reflection, refraction, z-depth. Remember that the z-depth must be set, so I will show you how to set it up. Then you can add the row component that can be splitted again in reflection and refraction. Source color that is useful for color, and also the normal maps.
Normal setting.
There are two kinds of normals, remember, geometry and shading. For the z-depth, you have to go onto the top view, find the camera from where you are rendering, and use the tape to calculate the distance between the camera and the last object that is visible in the scene.
Tape à? Tape là đo à? Ôi giờ mình mới biết. Dài 4.200.
So here I can read this number down here. I just have to copy that number into the max value into the z-depth.
Okay.
Then remember, the row component can be splitted in diffuse if you want the row total light, so you can also rename it. And then you can add another row component. These times will be the row reflection. And again, if needed, the row refraction. To create masks, you need to use the ID tool. It's a really powerful plugin. So it works in this way. You just have to select objects that you want to mask. So for example, I can start by adding these objects into the ID number 1.
ID, okay.
Then this object here, these two chairs, and just press the plus button. It will automatically assign the next number.
Okay.
This is up to you, the way you want to use this. You can split masks by material or by object or similar objects. Just make a few tests and see what's the best option for you. Once you finished, press this button, the Corona RGB, and automatically it will create for you the object ID masks.
Ôi vãi, hay thế. Nhưng mà chết dở cái này nhá. Cái này sẽ bị một cái là đi mask. Và ví dụ như cái một này này, mình lúc đầu mình mask á thì mình nhớ. Nhưng mà đến lần thứ hai, lần thứ ba dự án kiểu bẵng đi tầm mấy ngày ấy, xong quay lại nhá. Nếu mà mình cái dự án mà phức tạp nhá, mình mask nhiều, mình đều nhớ cái một này là cái nào. Đó, đấy là một vấn đề. Đấy là một vấn đề, nhưng mà cái này hay thật. Cái ID2 này ghi lại. Sợ nhất là cái mình không nhớ cái kênh đấy là cái gì đâu. Ví dụ như kiểu mình mask cái ghế là một chẳng hạn. Nhưng mà về sau mình bẵng đi, mình làm preview 2 mình quay lại, mình không biết cái một đấy nó là cái gì. Thì thay đổi hay là nhét thêm ghế cái kia thứ vào thay cái một đi thì chết dở. Nhưng mà cứ ghi lại cái tool này đã. Khá hay nhá. Thực sự rất hay. ID tool.
Before to render, remember it's better to override the sky in order to see a black sky. This will prevent any borders that may cause artifacts during the post-production phase. And to change this, just go into the scene setup and enable the direct visibility override and leave a black color down here. At this point you can start your render. Make sure that your render elements are working and they are visible.
Đó, ôi cái này hay thật. Cái ID2 này hay thật.
When the render is finished, if you want to save a single file with all the render elements and the beauty pass inside, just click the Save button and choose as a format OpenEXR.
EXR. Open EXR.
When you see this pop-up appearing, remember to enable this button in order to
automatically add or remove render element.
to include automatically all the render elements inside of the file.
Thế ra. Xem lại cái này đã. Save.
When you see this pop-up appearing, remember to enable
Automatically add and remove render element from render dialog.
this button in order to include automatically all the render elements inside of the file.
Ok, hôm nay học đến đây thôi. Hôm nay học đến đây thôi nhá anh em nha. Mai mình sẽ học tiếp. Mỗi hôm không nên học quá nhiều đâu. Mình học được chuột phải check được ID đã. Đấy em, chuột phải check được ID đấy. À, ok. Học được 73 phút rồi này. Tức là gần tiếng rưỡi đấy. Anh em nghe tí nhạc nha. Ngồi chill chill nghe nhạc tí. Hoặc là anh em có thể vào làm trận game. Không biết được. Sơn vào đây chưa? Hôm nay học đến đây thôi, mai học tiếp. Nhớ là video 3.1.2 Mask and Saving Excel File. Ngồi chat với bạn một tí. Tentative. What is tentative? Mang tính thăm dò. Và làm trận Overwatch. Ok. Lâm đâu rồi? Lâm có đón không? Tắt stream nhá, anh em vào Discord nhá. Mời thằng Sơn vào Discord này, thỉnh thoảng lên ngồi nói chuyện cũng được. Invite people. Copy. Gửi cho thằng Sơn. Về anh quên Skype. Nó thật. Stream nha anh em nhé. Bye bye. Mai học tiếp. Không, mai hoặc ngày kia.